Hello out there, and thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Gret Gonzalez. I'm the artistic director here at Virtual Arts Productions. And if you're already a friend of our company, you know that part of Virtual Arts' mission as a nonprofit theater company and artist lab is to foster the creation of new works of hope, humor, and humanity. Well, tonight we're here to shine a very bright light on that humanity part. What we'll be viewing together momentarily is a live stream rewatch of the world premiere performance of The Inexorable Trial for Jennifer Moore, a short play written by Virtual Arts Operations Director Christy Patti. This piece was originally presented during our annual New Play Festival earlier this year. But as you'll see, the timeliness and gravity of the subject matter being what it is, we knew not only did we have to show this piece again, we also wanted to create a conversation about it by delving deeper into the why behind this play. So please stick around after the live stream for what I promise will be a spirited and heartfelt conversation with the playwright, the director, and members of the cast about what this play means to us all, not just as voters, but as humans. So without further ado, here's Christy to introduce her play.
See, what made you want to write this show?
After the Dobbs decision in the Supreme Court came down, Dobbs was the one that overturned Roe v. Wade. I just, as a woman, as a mother with a child who is female, it just so personally spoke to me in my soul of how awful this decision was for womankind and anyone who wants to be a parent, really. I didn't know what else to do but write.
No te preocupes. Todo va a estar bien. You will be fine. Count down from 10.
10.
9, 8, 7.
Court is now in session. Welcome, the Honorable Justice Ginsburg.
Wait, where am I?
Didn't they tell you when they gave you the link?
I don't remember a link. Actually, I don't remember anything just now.
I think we can help you with that. Take a breath. We're here to help.
Wait, hold on. Eleanor, Ruth, Ida, Frida. Is this a dream? Where am I?
In a way, not really. Now, I'm assigned to ask the questions here, so if you'll allow me to proceed.
Sure, why not? Seems like everything's insane these days, so why not be in a courtroom with a bunch of dead female icons? I mean, is someone playing a trick on me?
Jennifer, if you'll let me just proceed, I think you'll start to understand.
Eleanor, if she's not up to it, we can just let her be.
Not on my watch.
Okay,
Proceed.
but before we start, can I just ask something?
Yes, of course.
So if you're the judge here and Eleanor Roosevelt's my attorney,
Ida is our courtroom reporter.
and Frida,
The court artist this week. We gave Georgia the week off. Honestly, I needed a break from the vagina flowers.
that's fair. Big fan, Miss Kahlo.
Gracias.
And Ida B. Wells, geez, what an honor.
It's my job, ma'am, to help us get to the truth.
Ready to get on with it now?
As ready as I'll ever be, I guess.
Eleanor?
Yes, Your Honor. Miss Moore, we'd like to start with some easy questions. What is your current age?
42,
Where do you live?
Brownsville, Texas.
Excuse me, Your Honor. I have in my history here that Mrs. Moore is from Seattle.
Well, I am from Seattle. We only moved to Brownsville, Texas about 6 months ago.
What brought you to Texas?
Oh, I thought Mrs. Roosevelt was asking the questions.
Eleanor, please. My mother was Mrs. Roosevelt. We're pretty democratic around here with our question asking, and you're not the one on trial.
I'm not?
Of course not. No.
Wait, but then who's on trial?
Miss Moore, if you'll just bear with us, this will all make sense soon.
Sí. Can you just face front, Miss Jennifer? Gracias.
Back to the questions for Miss Moore, if you please.
Oh, you can call me Jen if you like.
Is that what you'd like?
I think so. Actually, no one's ever asked me that before. In school, they called me Jenum.
Janum.
Kids. I mean, we had 4 Jennifers in my class, so I was Jen M. And one day I accidentally referred to my jeans as denim. I don't know. My mom used to call them that. Anyway, from that day on, Jen M became Jen M. I hated it.
So,
Jen is fine.
Jen, you're from Seattle but moved recently to Texas. Why?
Well, my husband lost his job as part of the big tech layoffs and was lucky enough to get a job in Brownsville before the unemployment ran out.
A good, loving, married woman, case dismissed.
Now, you know we have to delve deeper than that.
I thought just once you'd let me have one.
Nice try.
Proceed.
How long have you been married, Jen?
11 years, but we've been together 12. We knew so quick it was right, and we were already in our 30s, so didn't feel the need to wait.
And how did that go for you?
There's been some bumps in the road, but I wouldn't do it any differently.
Any children?
2. Richie is 10 and Zoe is 7.
You didn't waste much time.
Well, it's not like we planned it that way. I got pregnant on my honeymoon. Had no idea I was so fertile.
Some people have all the luck.
You can say that again.
So, lovely little family there, 2 kids, happy marriage.
Let the record show this woman had a lovely life.
Was it a lovely life?
Wait, was?
Never mind. Now, after you moved to Texas, it says here that, well, why don't you tell the court what happened, Jen?
Okay, so we moved to Brownsville. It's a lovely seaside town. We took a hit on selling our house, and Steve was on a 6-month probation at work before the health insurance kicked in, so the money was tight, but we were making it work. Even got an insurance policy privately, though the deductible was insane. Anyway, 2 months after moving there, I found out I was pregnant. I mean, I'm in my 40s and Steve is clipped, so it was just total freak of nature.
Gosh, another baby? How lucky.
Oh, yeah. It was like a little miracle. But the money was so tight, and the first 2 were no problem at all. Flew out when it was time. Pregnancies were a breeze, so I figured I could wait a little bit before seeing the doctor. Those first few visits, there's not much they can do anyway, and the good insurance was kicking in by month 5.
All very understandable. What happened next?
Well, by month 5, it was hard to even find an OB willing to accept me as a patient. I was a danger to them. I called 7 different practices before I found one that was willing, had to sign a bunch of "I won't sue if anything goes wrong" type of papers.
Liability clause.
Yeah, liability clause. So I signed it and went for my first checkup at 25 weeks, and it was all horribly wrong. Birth defects, no chance of survival past birth. Honestly, I'm not even sure the words they used because I just blacked out.
I don't like where this is heading.
Jen, we know this is tough. Keep going, please, if you can.
Sure. I don't even know how to explain it. Distraught. Not the right word. Not strong enough. I wanted this baby so much. It was a way to stay young. I started missing the smell of baby skin after a bath and the feel of a little body napping on my chest and just being so needed. I never thought it would happen again, but there it was, this miracle of nature. Depression, maybe is the word. I just felt like the color drained from the world, and what was once blue and green and brown was now just shades of gray. The walls just closed in around me.
What options were you given?
Not many. Go home and try to forget it until it passes naturally, if it passes.
They wanted you to wait it out.
I mean, it's the law now.
But you have the soul of an artist, and your soul would not allow you peace.
Yes. Steve could see it. He saw me dying as piece by piece my sanity started to go. My body had a foreign invader inside me, one that would never be the tiny miracle I could love and snuggle, but a horrible intruder that would just not let me rest while it was still part of me. I stayed up at night envisioning ways to off myself. I don't know, my brain just wasn't right. It was like I couldn't feel happiness anymore. It just was just outside of my room, but it was locked away without a key.
So you
Steve found the place just over the border, not even an hour drive. The closest place in the States would have taken us 3 days to drive, and he couldn't get that time off of work yet, so we took the kids too. Told them it would be an adventure.
Frida, how's that painting coming?
Almost finished.
Perfect, because I think we're wrapping up here.
do you remember anything else, Jen?
Remember the nurse being so kind. She was the first one to show me kindness through all of this. And in that kindness, in that basic humanity, I started to remember what happiness was like. I thought of my handsome boy and the shared jokes and sing-alongs, truly my soul twin on this planet. And I thought of my joyful girl, the most loving person I've ever met, and how her hugs could melt anything away. And I thought about Steve, my dear, sweet Steve, who was just doing the best with what life threw at him. And I started to feel guilt for letting the depression take over, for forgetting my two beautiful babies and focusing on the one that was never meant to be. And for every moment, I was distant to Steve. And then it was time. I remember counting from 10. I think I made it to 7. That's the last thing I recall.
Is there anything you'd like to share with us? Anything else?
Not that I can think of. So wait, is this an anesthesia hallucination then?
In a way, not really.
Ella está perdiendo demasiada sangre.
I'll pay faster.
Wait, what was that?
Proceed, Eleanor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Está perdiendo demasiada sangre.
90/60.
Rápido, 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 dame.
80/40.
Wait, what's happening?
Your Honor, we're running out of time.
Indeed, we are. Eleanor, I'm ready to make my judgment.
The record is ready to be updated.
Si la podemos estabilizar.
Ella está perdiendo demasiada sangre.
Está desangrando, se está desangrando.
In light of recent events, this court asserts that the United States Supreme Court and the state of Texas are guilty.
Wait, guilty of what?
Sorry, my dear.
La perdimos.
Malditos americanos.
Frida, would you translate for Jen, please? The American education system at work again.
We lost her. Damn Americans. I finished.
What happens now?
Now, you rest, sweet Jennifer.
But my kids, I'm not ready. I can't leave them.
We've made sure they'll be taken care of.
Steve,
We'll get through this with some therapy.
I don't understand. I didn't do anything wrong.
You weren't on trial.
I'm the one who gets the consequences. My kids are the ones who grow up without a mother. My husband, a widow. It's not fair.
I couldn't fight the cancer any longer.
If they had listened to me at the UN, things would have turned out differently.
Don't look at me. They didn't even consider me a real human.
I paint flowers so they will not die.
Thanks, Frida. At least they don't look like vaginas.
So that's it then.
That seems to be the case, yes. Anything in closing, Jen?
Will it ever change?
None of us has a crystal ball, but
it won't.
It tends to go in cycles.
Feet. What do I need you for when I have wings to fly?
Jen, it's time. We're with you.
Okay, Jennifer. Oh, all right. Well, let's bring Christy on and we'll hear from our playwright.
Hi.
Christy.
Hi, Gret.
It's so nice to see that again, as emotional as it is.
Right. Yeah.
Really, really good to see you again, honestly.
Oh, thanks.
Fabulous, fabulous women, fabulous writing. And what some people might not know is that this is the first play you have ever written.
Correct.
Your world premiere. And you did talk a little bit about it in your intro there, but can you talk a little bit about what maybe was going on in your own life or in the world? Why did you write Jennifer Moore when you wrote it?
Of course. Thank you for the question. So I've over the years have started a bazillion plays. So I mean, this was the first one that I've ever actually been able to like sit, and it came to me almost as a whole piece when it came into my brain. So I'm glad for that, honestly.
Yeah.
So it's all kind of informed by my past history with my pregnancies and personal life and that kind of stuff. I'll give you like a broad, large overview kind of. So my first child, I did get pregnant on my honeymoon, like Jennifer over there. So that was a little bit of a surprise. I did not have, well, I did have health insurance at the time, but we were living in Florida, and it was right before the Affordable Care Act happened. So our health insurance did not cover anything obstetric, gynecological, because they didn't have to pre-Obamacare, which, thankfully, by about month 4 of that pregnancy is when the Affordable Care Act kicked in. So like the timing could not have been more perfect. And by that time we had moved back up north. And so I did have health insurance by the time my son was born. I had a pretty easy pregnancy, but a very traumatic birth with him that ended up being a C-section after the doctors weren't really listening to me about like how this induction was not going well. But and then I had to go back to work 2.5 weeks after the C-section.
Wow.
Because my husband had been laid off from his job at the time. And again, we didn't have anything. I was the only one, he wasn't even getting unemployment or anything. So there was that because there's no family leave in this country. Yay.
Yay.
So then when it was time for baby number 2, I had a miscarriage. It was very early in the process miscarriage, so it was not as traumatic as
Mm,
friends who have had very, very traumatic miscarriages, and it could have been a lot worse. But I also remember at the time that I had a vacation coming up. We were going to Disney World. My son was then 2.5. And it was like, well, you can kind of just wait for it to go. But I had all these images of myself like bleeding out on Space Mountain.
mm.
So I
Oh my
opted
God.
to have a DNC, which is really an abortion. But I had already had the miscarriage. Anyway, but now, like in some states, you can't even get that if that's
Right.
if that's your wish.
It starts to get a little messy, and
Yeah.
probably talk about that a little bit later. But
Yeah. And so and then not too long after that, I got pregnant with my daughter, my youngest, and that was in 2016, around the end of 2016. So there was all that political stuff going on with where the big hot button issue was late term abortions at that time. And I just remember reading story after story, these heartbreaking stories. And I'm pregnant and I'm all hormonal and I'm crying at every story I'm reading of these poor tortured women who have to
Right.
carry these pregnancies till they pass naturally, hopefully, and don't die in the process. Um, and then when I actually forgot about this until like I was really thinking about it a couple days ago, when I had my daughter, this very same day, a friend of a friend, um, who I had kind of seen on Facebook, this all happening, was giving birth to her second and
Mm.
passed away in childbirth. And
Oh,
I was like about my age. Her younger was about the same age as my younger child, and it wrecked me. It destroyed me. I was like, I can't believe this is still a thing happening in this country that women are just dying from bleeding out from having babies.
right.
It's
Right.
insane. Fast forward then to when the Dobbs decision happens, and Dobbs was the Supreme Court decision that overturned Roe v. Wade. This has just kind of been percolating all in my head for a while, and it really was the kind of deciding factor of I've got to take pen to paper on this one and really,
Right.
yeah, it's time.
Yeah. Yeah. And coincidentally, our new play festival was happening, and you had some encouragement internally
Absolutely, yeah.
to make sure that these words that were stewing were put on paper and then presented to the world. So we're really glad it worked out that way. I mean, honestly, for us, it was fabulous to have any show of yours, but this one, was just so poignant. I also am very interested to know why, and maybe there's not a why, but I'm interested to know if there is. Why did you choose the women that you chose to portray in the film? They're true life characters that have been influential in many, many circles and areas, but why for you?
I would say of the 4 of them, 3 of them have been personal heroes of mine forever, honestly. Ida was the one I knew, quite frankly, the least about and had to
Mhm.
do a little bit of research on her. But when I first heard about her, found out about her, I found her fascinating and I love her story. And I think she's an amazing human being as well. Um, but beyond that, I feel like all 4 women also kind of went against their gender norms in their own way, in their own time. So Frida very, very much had fertility problems, was very like bisexual, like artist, open life, very played with the feminine way of being, the unibrow, all of that. So I've always loved Frida. Ruth, didn't cook. Her husband was the cook. She was like, she forged the way for so many things. So like, just she had to be, there was no way Ruth Bader Ginsburg was not going to.
No question.
And then I think Eleanor Roosevelt, why I really wanted to put her in was just that the line of my mother was Mrs. Roosevelt. You can call me Ellen. It's a silly thing, right? But I also love Eleanor Roosevelt. I think she's
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, with that in mind, shall we bring our other 2 ladies on the screen
Yes.
and add them into this conversation?
Yes.
We have one of our actresses here tonight. It's Cindy Costello. She played the illustrious Eleanor Roosevelt. And then we have our director, Conchetta Rella, as well, joining us.
Hello.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much for
Oh,
having us.
yes, of course. And maybe, Jenna, maybe you can start us off with the same sort of a similar question. How did you find it incorporating these true to life characters? How did you create that on screen for us so that we knew, they'd certainly introduce themselves so we know who they are, but
Well, I kind of did this. I had to do the same thing. I just did my own research. But what's so great, as you know, being a director and an actor, is that your actors will always do more research than you can. You can fit in. So these women came with so much knowledge of who their character was, and then came with their own womanhood, which was a whole nother character, and then came with themselves, saying, this is what I think this story is about. This is what I think this character's objective is, and so on. And so given that they did an immense amount of homework almost for me, but especially for the cause of the play. And through that, I think it felt like it couldn't have been a choice of any other four women in history, in that sense, that they just came with it, and it made sense with the play. It made sense with the world.
yeah, absolutely. And Cindy, what's your perspective on this part? How did you embody one of the most iconic and famous first ladies we've ever had? And what did that mean to you? What did it mean to the play in the context of the play?
Well, I did a lot of, I watched a couple of docudramas and some documentaries about Eleanor Roosevelt. I didn't know too much about her, except she was Franklin's wife initially.
Right.
And that, and I learned more about her and how she, she stood by her man, even though he did her wrong at certain points in her life. And that, she was definitely the woman behind the man when he developed polio, or I think it was
Wow.
polio. Yeah. And she was, I guess they wanted her to run for office at some point after, and she said, no, and she chose to do what she did for the UN because she just wanted to help people. She was not interested in the whole political climate. And she was, she's just a really cool lady.
Oh, absolutely. All of them are. And it was really cool to see them, portrayed in this way and addressing a contemporary issue. All of them from a different phase of our world, phase of our country, but all commentating on a very contemporary and unfortunately not so contemporary issue. It's an issue that we've been addressing for decades and we thought was addressed. So I think at this point, I'd just like to open up the floor if anyone has anything they'd like to say about Christy's show, about the issues that we're speaking about here. If you have something personal to speak about, great. But if not, just, what did this play mean to you? What did it stir up in you as a woman, as a voter, as an American, just as a human being? Because that's really what this tells. It tells the human side of all these ballot measures and Supreme Court judges and judgments and all these things that are very very black and white on the paper, but there's all kinds of shades of gray and shades of humanity in there. And so I just sort of wanted to open the floor and see what you guys had to contribute about that.
Well, I can say that I think what Christy wrote, yes, it's all women, right? And it's from a female perspective for sure, being a female writer, and female director, right? And female cast. But the thing is, it's when we talk about healthcare and things like that, it's human rights. They're human rights issues. It's about the humanity. You said that at the very beginning, Gret, you introduced about the humanity, but that's at the core of it. That's what connects all these women, is they all fought for human rights in their own way of doing it. And I think in the very beginning, I asked Christy, why these 4 women too? Like, why did you choose these 4 women? But that's what it comes down to, is that they all, and in this world, they all would have been for it. They all would have been like, against this issue. They would have been for, progress, for change, for healthcare, for human care, beyond that. So whether you're political, whether you're not too political, whether you like it or you don't want to get involved in it, you have to be able to see that angle, because if we don't take care of each other, who is going to be left?
Right.
Just like, let's get as simple as we can with it. So,
yeah.
Whatever we can do to support each other in a very healthy way, we should do that. We should just do that.
Right.
And
I did back onto that what I was alluding to earlier with Christy, the lines of female healthcare, and especially prenatal care and or fertility related care, the lines are very blurred. Birth control is used for birth control, but it's also used to regulate periods. It's also used to regulate hormones. It's also used for people who struggle with that, and can't function in a normal way unless they are regulated in some way. And that small pill can be a miracle for somebody, not to not get pregnant, just simply to be able to live throughout the month in a similar fashion and not be debilitated during menstruation, period. That's a blurred line. These drugs that they're banning, that they're calling abortion drugs, they don't only serve to create an abortion. They serve to make the uterus function in a certain way to accomplish a certain thing. It may be to pass a fetus that's not doing well. It may be to perform an abortion. It may be for something else entirely different. But those drugs are put on a list in black and white and banned. And so now doctors are left to figure out a different way to treat these other things that are going on that they can use that one drug for. Now they're no longer able to do that, and they're scared to do it. So for me, there's so many blurred lines that it makes no sense to put it in the hands of the government. It only makes sense to put it in the hands of a medical professional at that point. Whatever your beliefs are, that can be between you and your doctor. So anyway, I just wanted to say that it doesn't even come down to abortion rights. Sometimes it comes down to, like you said, basic human healthcare rights.
Yeah, it's the resources, when people don't have enough resources, we get desperate. And when you get desperate, that's when danger can happen. People will do anything to get past whatever their hiccup is, whatever their struggle is. They'll do anything to get through it. And in this case, can lead to the ultimate. It can lead to death. So, let's be a little bit more careful when we're making these laws, like who, like, as you said, like, who are we saying no to? Who gets denied these things, and who can have them, and what are the bans on them? What are the rules, and who gets to make the rules? And I agree. I think there's a little bit of I agree with you. I'm not sure it's all in the right quadrant. It feels like it's.
Yeah. And it also, bouncing on that, it's true. It's very true in that abortions aren't going away, but they're just harder for people without resources to get now. Those are the people who can't get them. And I mean, it is borne out now because and we knew it was going to take time to start getting the statistics out, but I'm sure you're all aware, the Amber Thurman story that has just come out in the last couple of weeks, the woman in Georgia who did pass because she was not given that DNC that she needed so desperately, and died from it, which is just crazy. But more so, even just having it back in the States, you've then got 50 different set of rules. And imagine if you're moving from one place to another and you don't necessarily know, and your life is dictated by some choice that you don't have a hand in. If you're in the military, if you're like, me personally, by the time it's time for Eva to go to college, I'm going to be checking out what states have what laws and be like, okay, these are the states that I don't think you should look at colleges in, because
interesting. Yeah.
God forbid anything happens, you're not going to get the right health care that you need.
Yeah. See, but that's like scary. We're supposed to be advanced, you know what I mean? We're supposed to be in a situation where we're thinking forward. And to me, it does feel like a little bit of backwards thinking, you know? We've seen these mistakes before. I'm also a teacher, and my students often complain. I teach art, so everybody likes me. But my students often complain about their regular subjects. And I had one student complaining about history. What's the point? It happened already. Who cares? And I said the teacher thing. You know, you need to know about history so you don't repeat the same mistakes. And as I'm saying it, I'm like, dang, I should take some of that advice in my personal life. You know what I mean? But also, like, we could all stand to do that as a country. Like, I think we could stand to look at the history of things and have that be valued. And I'm not saying they're not. I don't know how it works at these levels. I don't know how it works in the lawmaking levels. But I do know something is off about this. We can't be risking our citizens just so, you know, because it's going, like, you know, we're risking our citizens' lives to pass a law. It doesn't feel like that's right. It feels like we should do everything we can not to risk any lives and pass laws and do what we need to do. At the same time, it feels, but again, I always feel like, what do I actually know? I only know my personal bubble, my personal world, right? But I like these conversations for this reason, to hear from different people and feel like the votes matter, right? So where we place those votes really count, I think. And it seems like now is as good a time as any, I feel like, to get this, you know, kind of corrected or get it towards a better pathway, for sure.
Yeah. And it's so important to vote locally and statewide, because of the Electoral College. That doesn't, I mean, still absolutely vote for president by all means, especially if you're in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. But statewide, local wide is really where you can make the most difference.
Absolutely. Well, we have one cast member who really wanted to contribute to the conversation, but couldn't be here tonight. So we did jump on a call with her and record a little bit of our conversation so that we could have the input of our dear Louise Howard.
So first of all, when I read the script, I was just, I don't really have any words for that, because it was so profound. It was such a profound effect. And I thought, oh my God, finally I can do something, feel like I'm doing something to counteract these numbskulls who, I mean, I have other words, but I'm not going to say them, numbskulls, to counteract their moronic behavior. I mean, to me, this is appalling what's happened. I fought a long time ago for this right to happen. And now I got to do it all over again. I'm freaking 73. It's like, come on. You know, everybody's talking about, you know, whether or not they can have an abortion. What I'm learning more about are the women who are having miscarriages or not able to deliver, and something goes wrong and they're not allowed the medical procedures that they freaking need to live.
Right.
I don't get it.
I think you also have a really interesting perspective on it, because as you've mentioned to me before, you have experience living in a place that has fascism, and I was wondering if you have any parallels you can draw or things you can see that are happening that kind of mirror that.
I lived in Spain during Franco's reign of, I'm not sure what, and everybody felt safe. It's not hard to feel safe when there are machine guns on every second block. Now, the fact that the machine guns were in the arms of folks who weren't well educated, who didn't know, I mean, they were terrifying to me. I didn't feel safe. And the whole watch what your neighbor, look at what your neighbor's doing, report your neighbors kind of thing, when that started happening, I'm like, holy crap, that's what happened when we were in Spain and you wanted to say anything against or even about the government, not necessarily even against it, ask a question. We would go to these clandestine meetings and like, knock on the door. And then what's the secret code word? And then you would be let in. And everybody would be on pins and needles, worried that somebody in that room was going to report them. And there are moments, I wish I could explain it. When I'm in a group that I know is not of my politics, I get a little nervous. It's like, who knows, 2 years from now, if things shift in a very non-positive way, and we are under more of a dictator than we are a president, or a king. Okay, people want kings around here yet. I just get that feeling of like, geez, should I watch what I'm saying? I like doing work with women. I like work about women. And I'm not saying that I'm like anti-man. It's just that, that especially now, when every single one of our freedoms for women, I feel, are absolutely hanging by a thread. If people think Roe v. Wade is the only thing on the agenda, then they're really dumb, because they're coming after, the fertility treatments. They're coming after morning after. They're coming after birth control. And when they come after birth control, I'm hoping then people go, hello, oh, this is affecting me. Because that crowd over there only wants people to have women to have babies. Then after they're born, they don't give a shit.
Man, she doesn't mince words.
Not at all. I love listening to
I was so wrapped up in what she was saying. I didn't realize it came back on. I will say one positive thing. Well, not one, several, but like one positive thing that she reminded me of. She said all females. I like working with females. This was an all female crew. And I do want to say, I think this is my first production ever that was all female, cast, crew, production, everything. And I gotta tell you, there was no drama. Nobody was fighting with anybody. Nobody was upset. We were all pleasant. How are you? So good to see you. We did hard work. We left. It was fantastic. So I would recommend it. You can have it.
If you can do it, do it. And I'll tell a quick story about when I asked Conchetta to direct. I was like, just kind of feeling her out. And I was like, hey, do you ever think about directing? Do you ever want to direct? And she was like, no, not my thing. I was like, oh, because I wrote a script and I really want it. And she was like, I'm in.
Like, if she set me up. She set me up. If she would have started with, I wrote something, I would be like, can I direct it? But, you went the back door instead.
And I'm so glad you said yes.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked me. Really, the honor was mine. And I have to back up what Gret said earlier. If you don't continue to write, it would be a shame for the rest of us. It really would. So whenever you find it, again, moving, inside of you, the vessel happening, please take to the paper again, because you have a voice. You definitely do.
Well, thank you.
I agree.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And I'll add to that, to include all of you and say, thank you for giving your time to something that really is so important. I mean, we have a unique way of addressing things as artists, and I am never more inspired than watching my colleagues and my friends do what they do best. And every piece we do means something. Let me not say that, but when you do something with the intention to really make an impact or say something specific, there's really nothing more inspiring than that. And it was great to see everybody jump on board with it and just say, yeah, this has to be made. Yes, we have to present it in the Play Festival. Yes, we have to present it again. Yes, we might have to keep talking about this for a while. I mean, as Louise said, this is something we've been doing a long time. And if women know how to do one thing, it's how to do something again and again until it's done correctly, until it's done and done.
Yeah.
And I hate that we have to keep doing it, but I'm inspired by a new generation who is taking it on in a new way. For those of us that sort of can look back at Roe You know, I certainly was very a young person, but you know, it was previous to my lifetime, but very near future right before me. So you know, that feels like recent history to us. And it's something that was fought for and done. And now we can't even fight it the same way. It's a new issue now.
Yeah.
It's a new issue because we've come on. So I do now, I feel like we need to look to the younger generations who just sort of see it for what it is, call it for what it is, and don't accept things as they are. So anyway, thank you all for spending your time, you know, on something so very important.
Thank you so much for having us again. Thank you, Christy, for writing this.
Thank you.
So I think unless anyone else has anything else they'd like to say, we'd just like to say thank you for joining us this evening. And we'll see you at the next one. We have a lot of programming planned for next year, and we'll get on Christy to write her second play.
Vote.
Vote, yes, please vote.
Please vote.